What if language wasn't just our human superpower? Could the Neanderthals have had voices of their own? Today, over 7,000 languages bring the world to life, each a unique blend of sounds, rhythms, and expression. A true marvel of human evolution. Language is one of our most defining traits, setting us apart from any other species. But what if we weren't the first? Nearly 400,000 years ago, Neanderthals roamed Europe, adapting to harsh landscapes and building lives in ways that might surprise us. Resilient, resourceful, and possibly more like us than we realize. Could they have had a language of their own? Did they speak, connect, and share thoughts as we do? Let's dive into this fascinating question and unravel one of the greatest mysteries of our shared history. Before we dive into what the Neanderthals' language was like, we first have to know who they were. To put it simply, Neanderthals were an ancient human species, our closest relatives, who thrived in Europe and Western Asia from around 400,000 to 40,000 years ago, known for their powerful, stocky build and distinctive features. Such as prominent brow ridges and large noses, Neanderthals were well adapted to the harsh Ice Age environments they inhabited. They were skilled hunters, toolmakers, and surprisingly resilient survivors, capable of enduring extreme climates and diverse landscapes. But there's more to Neanderthals than physical strength. Genetic research has shown that they occasionally interbred with Homo sapiens, leaving traces of their DNA in modern humans. And while their reasons for eventual extinction remain a mystery, one thing is for sure: if we can crack the Neanderthals, then we are on our way to finally understanding who we are and why we are who we are. So bringing it to the topic of complex language, we first have to define what we mean by this. When we speak of complex language, we're referring to the ability to convey abstract ideas, emotions, and detailed information through structured grammar, syntax, and vocabulary. This level of communication enables not just basic interaction, but the sharing of intricate thoughts, plans, and cultural knowledge across individuals and generations. And perhaps the first place to look to answer this question is the usual suspect when it comes to ancient humans: genetics and physiology. Fossils today stand as one of the most famous and important gifts we got from our ancient ancestors. But the Neanderthals may have left us more than bones, as their physical structures carry hints of a possible language. Let's start with the vocal cords. The vocal tract is the passage in the body through which sound is produced, extending from the vocal cords into the larynx, aka voice box, up to the mouth and nasal cavity. It includes the pharynx, mouth, tongue, and lips, which together shape the articulate sound. Essentially, when air from the lungs passes through the vocal cords, it creates vibrations that resonate within the vocal tract. It is by adjusting the shape and movements of these parts that we produce different sounds and speech patterns. So what were the Neanderthal vocal cords like? The shape of the Neanderthal vocal tract has long been a subject of intense study. Unlike the elongated, flat vocal tract of non-human primates, Neanderthals have an arched skull base, more similar to modern humans. This arched structure impacts the shape of the throat and vocal cavity, potentially allowing Neanderthals to produce a broader range of sounds. However, there are some differences between ours and theirs. For example, their vocal tract might not have been optimized for the full array of sounds that modern humans can produce, particularly in high-pitched or complex tones. Regardless, the structure suggests they could make a variety of sounds beyond simple grunts, such as basic vowel and consonant combinations, setting them apart from their primate relatives and positioning them closer to the communication abilities of early humans. Besides the vocal cords, another necessary feature for speech is the hyoid bone. Found in many animals, the hyoid bone is a small U-shaped bone in the neck, located between the chin and thyroid cartilage. It supports the tongue and is crucial for speech, swallowing, and breathing. By anchoring muscles involved in vocalization, it enables complex sounds, making it essential for human speech capabilities. So, did Neanderthals have a hyoid bone? Yes, they did. And one was even found in Israel's Kabara cave. And get this, it was remarkable. In most mammals, the hyoid bone is simple and, as such, limits the range and control of vocal sounds. But in both modern humans and Neanderthals, the hyoid bone has a specific shape that supports the more intricate tongue movements necessary for speech. For years, the discovery led many to assert that Neanderthals likely possessed the capacity for spoken language. However, subsequent studies revealed that hyoid shape alone doesn't confirm language. After all, certain animals like pigs possess similar hyoid structures without advanced vocal capabilities. Therefore, while the hyoid shape alone isn't definitive proof, it forms part of a larger puzzle, one that, when combined with other anatomical clues, supports the idea of a more complex vocal system in Neanderthals than initially assumed. Another piece of this large puzzle is the structure of Neanderthal ear bones. This is because this structure provides us with a key piece of evidence to either support or destroy the Neanderthal language theory. Here's why Neanderthals show adaptations in their middle and inner ear that align with those of modern humans, particularly in sensitivity to sounds in the 2 to 5 kHz range, which, by the way, is home to many of the higher frequencies crucial for distinguishing consonants. Essentially, consonant sounds like P, T, and K require precise hearing to differentiate, and these sounds form the foundation of complex human languages. Now, this is where things get technical. See, this adaptation implies that Neanderthals may not only have been capable of producing speech-like sounds, but also of perceiving subtle vocal distinctions. Basically, the ability to hear in this range suggests they could have understood more complex sounds, facilitating the potential for nuanced communication. On the flip side though, primates lack this higher frequency sensitivity, telling us that there was a distinction between primate communication and Neanderthal communication. Now, a lesser known but vital piece of evidence for Neanderthal language comes from the examination of the foramina in Neanderthal skulls. To keep us on track, the foramina are small openings or holes in bones through which nerves, blood vessels, and other structures pass, allowing essential communication between different parts of the body and supporting vital functions. These foramina, which were notably large in Neanderthals, suggests that they had greater control over their breathing, which is critical for speech. That's because controlled breathing is essential for producing steady, flowing phrases and controlling volume, pitch, and cadence, all of which are vital to human speech. In modern humans, controlled breathing supports language by allowing us to produce extended utterances, control pitch, and modulate tone to express meaning and emotion. Today, studies have shown that the Neanderthal nerve canal size appears to be similar to ours, hinting at a possible parallel in their respiratory control. This capacity would have allowed Neanderthals to maintain a controlled flow of air through their vocal tract, essential for producing strings of sound and potentially even intonation, a key element in conveying emotion or emphasis. While the physical structures alone don't confirm that Neanderthals used a language as intricate as ours, they suggest the presence of both vocal capacity and auditory sensitivity necessary for complex communication. Moving away from biology, the Neanderthal paintings actually paint a much bigger picture, as they hint at Neanderthals being capable of more than just simple sounds. At the moment, whether their anatomy amounted to a full language or a sophisticated form of proto-language remains unknown, but the anatomical findings suggest that Neanderthals were far from silent, and their voices, though lost to time, may have been capable of expressing a rich inner world. But for us to truly understand, we have to go to the seat of consciousness and knowledge and dissect the Neanderthal brain. Stay tuned, because it gets very interesting. Above all things, the Neanderthal's brain offers a window into their cognitive abilities and raises fascinating questions about their potential for language. Structurally, their brains were larger on average than those of Homo sapiens, yet shaped in ways that suggest different functional priorities. Key differences include a larger occipital lobe responsible for visual processing and a smaller cerebellum, particularly on the right side. The larger occipital lobe suggests that Neanderthals were especially adept at processing visual information. This adaptation may have been crucial for survival in the diverse and challenging environments they occupied. That's because a heightened capacity for visual processing might imply that Neanderthals relied more on visual memory and spatial awareness than on abstract thought. However, the smaller cerebellum, which is involved in language processing, motor control, and even emotional regulation, could have impacted their ability to manage complex vocal sequences. In modern humans, a well-developed cerebellum is crucial for the fluent, rhythmic speech patterns typical of spoken language, suggesting that Neanderthals may have faced challenges in producing the same range of fluid sounds. Weirdly, language-associated brain regions like Broca's and Wernicke's areas were present in Neanderthals, but it's important to note that these regions alone don't guarantee language capabilities. These areas are also seen in other primates and support a variety of cognitive functions beyond speech. In Homo sapiens, the development of a spherical brain shape may have further facilitated complex language by improving neural connectivity, particularly for abstract and metaphorical thinking. This rounded shape, seen in early modern humans about 300,000 years ago, appears to allow richer connections across regions, a possible factor in the evolution of sophisticated language. Essentially, while Neanderthals had some of the neural architecture seen in modern humans, their smaller cerebellum, distinctive brain shape, and likely limited abstract thought suggest their language, if it existed, may not have had the full flexibility and complexity of human speech. Their communication might have been rooted more in concrete information, physical gestures, and simple vocalizations, rather than abstract ideas or metaphorical language. This distinct configuration of the Neanderthal brain gives us insights into their cognitive world, hinting at a form of communication adapted to their specific survival needs, but possibly less expressive and nuanced than our own. But here's the thing, if we shared genes with the Neanderthals, what role did they play in communication at large? The genetic ties between Neanderthals and modern humans shed valuable light on the evolution of communication, hinting at a shared foundation that may have influenced both species. A key discovery in this topic is the fact that Neanderthals possess the genetic underpinnings for speech, including the FOXP2 gene. This gene is crucial for fine motor control, essential for speech. However, language is a complex trait shaped by multiple genes, brain development, and environmental factors. While the genetic basis for language likely predates the split between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, it's clear that language is more than just a single gene. Beyond FOXP2, Neanderthals and modern humans share other genes tied to brain development, although it remains uncertain if these specific genes directly impact language. Their existence points to shared cognitive frameworks that might have facilitated some form of communication. The most intriguing evidence comes from interbreeding between Neanderthals and early non-African Homo sapiens. Many modern humans today, especially those of non-African descent, carry traces of Neanderthal DNA, indicating that hybrids were able to integrate successfully into human communities. The survival of these hybrid populations implies that they possessed functional language skills, critical for social cohesion and survival within human groups. Additionally, new insights from epigenetics reveal that gene expression can vary widely, influenced by environmental factors and inheritance. Epigenetic studies have highlighted differences in how genes related to vocal tract development were expressed between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. For example, specific methylation patterns in these genes suggest that Homo sapiens developed vocal adaptations for more complex speech, possibly missing in Neanderthals. For the less scientifically inclined, methylation patterns refer to the arrangement of methyl groups, which are chemical groups made of 1 carbon and 3 hydrogen atoms attached to DNA molecules at specific sites. This process, called DNA methylation, is an epigenetic modification that does not alter DNA sequences itself, but affects how genes are expressed, essentially turning them on or off. In these patterns, certain genes may be more or less active, depending on where methyl groups attach. Methylation patterns are critical in development, adaptation, and evolution, as they influence traits by regulating which genes are expressed in response to environmental and biological factors. In the end, together, these genetic insights hint at a shared yet distinct capacity for communication. While we may never know the exact language capabilities of Neanderthals, shared genes indicate that they likely had foundational abilities for speech. But now here's the question, just how does the Neanderthal language compare to ours today? Today, linguists and anthropologists likely agree that language did not emerge suddenly in Homo sapiens. Rather, it likely evolved gradually over millions of years through a series of biological and cultural innovations. Now, this theory is quite important as it challenges the idea that a singular genetic mutation was responsible for the sudden emergence of language. Instead, researchers argue that anatomical changes, like the development of the vocal tract and brain structures, along with social and cultural factors, contributed incrementally to the complex communication systems humans use today. In this context, language emerged as a gradual adaptive trait, shaped by both evolutionary pressures and cultural necessities. Now, with that in mind, that brings us to the concept of iconic sounds. For those who don't know, iconic sounds refer to words or sounds that resemble the objects or actions they represent. For example, the word buzz imitates the sound made by a bee, or the word hum that imitates the humming sound. These sounds are quite important, as they are thought to have been the first building blocks of language, building the gap between early vocalizations and more complex words. Researchers believe that early human communication likely began with these types of mimetic sounds. Paired with iconic sounds, the capacity for abstract thought, especially the use of metaphor, is often considered to be one of the hallmarks of advanced language. That's because metaphors allow humans to combine different concepts and communicate complex ideas symbolically. So how do all these tie to our ancient cousins? Some researchers speculate that Neanderthals, despite possessing rudimentary language, may have lacked the full capacity for metaphorical thinking. They believe that their brains, which were shaped differently to those of modern humans, may not have facilitated the intricate neural connections necessary for advanced abstract reasoning. In fact, Neanderthal brains showed a different arrangement of brain regions, particularly in areas related to the frontal cortex, which is involved in planning and abstract thinking. This may have limited their ability to produce complex sentences or express abstract concepts like metaphor, which requires a high degree of cognitive flexibility. Today, anatomical evidence suggests that Neanderthals were physically capable of speech, though their language may not have been as flexible or complex as that of modern humans. So now we have to know, when did we learn to speak? Well, the development of language in human infants provides valuable insights into the evolutionary trajectory of language. Just as early humans likely started with simple vocalizations that gradually evolved into complex language, infants begin their linguistic journey with babbling, producing sounds that imitate their environment. As babies grow, they begin associating sounds with meanings, a process that mirrors the early stages of language evolution in hominins. Iconic sounds play a role in this early language development, as babies often produce words that mimic real-world actions or objects. The gradual evolution from babbling to the use of full words and complex grammar in children mirrors the gradual emergence of language in early human ancestors, including Neanderthals. This process is deeply ingrained in our biological makeup, suggesting that the ability to learn and use complex language is a fundamental human trait that evolved over millions of years. Shifting things over a few 100,000 years into the past, we can actually trace the origin of speech altogether. See, the discovery of a hyoid bone in Australopithecus afarensis, a species that lived around 3.3 million years ago, gives us a critical look into the vocal capabilities of early hominins. Now, here's where it gets truly interesting. In modern humans, the hyoid is shaped and positioned in a way that supports a wide range of tongue and throat movements, which are essential for producing varied speech sounds. However, the hyoid bone found in Australopithecus afarensis resembles the hyoid bones in modern great apes, such as chimpanzees and gorillas. This similarity suggests that early hominins like afarensis might have had a vocal anatomy that included laryngeal air sacs. These air sacs, which are common in many primates, act as resonance chambers, amplifying sounds to make vocalizations louder. While these amplified sounds could have been useful for communication over long distances, they also come with limitations. Essentially, the presence of laryngeal air sacs is known to reduce the clarity of sounds, making it difficult to produce distinct vowels or consonants. This characteristic would have made complex, human-like speech difficult, if not impossible, in Australopithecus afarensis. In this context, early hominin vocalizations likely consisted of loud, resonant sounds useful for alerting others or communicating simple messages across distances, but lacking the fine-tuned clarity needed for detailed speech. These vocalizations might have included calls or screams to convey alarm or territory defense rather than specific words or sentences. However, the development of a more complex and versatile vocal tract structure, as seen in later human evolution, would be necessary to move beyond these early primal forms of communication. Around 2 million years ago, with the emergence of the genus Homo, significant changes in vocal anatomy began to unfold. By this time, Homo species were evolving larger brains, greater social complexity, and increasingly sophisticated tools, which likely required more advanced forms of communication. The anatomical evidence suggests that the vocal tract changes were part of this broader trend towards increased cognitive and social complexity. Perhaps one of the most telling signs of vocal tract evolution appears in our ancient ancestor, Homo Heidelbergensis, an early human species that lived around 450,000 years ago. According to studies, reconstructions of Homo Heidelbergensis suggest that the proportions of their vocal tract began to resemble those of modern humans, allowing for the production of distinct vowel sounds. This change is important because vowels form the foundation of spoken language. Distinct vowel sounds allow for a wide range of words and meanings, enabling more nuanced communication. Modern humans use a lowered larynx and more flexible tongue to create different sounds, especially vowels, which are essential for intelligent speech. It even seems that the vocal tract configuration of Homo Heidelbergensis seems to be a step in this direction, representing an intermediate stage between the less specialized vocalizations of earlier hominins and the articulate speech of modern humans. The evolution of a more human-like vocal tract configuration in Homo Heidelbergensis suggests that these early humans were capable of producing a greater variety of sounds, which may have enabled more complex forms of social communication. Although Homo Heidelbergensis might not have had language as we know it, they likely had the anatomical basis for more advanced vocalizations, potentially involving rudimentary forms of speech with basic vowel and consonant sounds. But what did all these changes mean for speech in general? These changes in vocal anatomy across hominin evolution suggest a gradual shift towards more sophisticated vocal capabilities. To put it simply, by the time of Homo Heidelbergensis, hominins likely possessed a vocal range that allowed for more effective social coordination, potentially giving them an evolutionary advantage in hunting, tool-making, and managing complex social relationships. But what do you think? Did Neanderthals have advanced language, or were they more hinged on grunts and screams? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons to explore even more wonders of prehistoric times. Until next time, stay curious.